Hey everybody, welcome back to the HIT.OR.DIE podcast with your host Jake Saldati, Chad Rothford, and we have a special guest, one that's very special to me. You guys have probably now heard of him because he was National Coach of the Year at Oral Roberts University, helped lead the team to a College World Series appearance, the first one since 78, I think, right? 78. And then maybe took the spot of the best team to ever play there since the 06 Super Regional team. But Coach, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate y'all having me.
Coach Folmer, sorry. I've never
well, you know him.
I've never said his first name in my life.
Right.
So
you don't have, I can say, I don't like doing it either, but Coach Ryan Folmer, congrats, Coach, on that, by the way. Of the year. Definitely deserving.
You know, I try to tell everybody too, that one distinction that was a little bit, it was humbling, but it was a little bit nerve-wracking for me, a little bit embarrassing for me, I think, because you know when you win something like that, it's a direct reflection of a couple things. Number one, of really good players. We had a lot of really good players and a great staff too. So I'm fortunate to be part of a really good coaching staff. Coach Neal, who Chad knows really well, has been here 20 years, as long as I have, and Coach Davis has been our pitching coach here and has been here 15 years too. So, man, I'm blessed to be part of a really good staff. So that's a group effort. That's a group award for us.
Yeah, I knew you'd say something like that. And I could tell but you were like that even in college. You never really take credit for anything. You were always in the back of the scenes, and you know that he was the work guy. We were always in the cage grinding and working, and you never been the face. So that's probably been a difficult part of being the head coach, is now you are the face of the program. But just to see what you guys did this season was amazing. To follow you guys, I mean, I've been following you guys every year, but obviously this time to get national recognition, which I hate to say because I always think we had national recognition, you know, it's that kind of thing. But just to see Oral Roberts and then everybody come out and want to root for the underdog, and the season you had with 21 straight wins, 52 wins, 23-1 in conference, and just, you know, showing that the little guy, you know, can compete with those Power 5 schools that everybody's just Power 5, Power 5, Power 5. It was nice to see because, like in 06 and 07, I got to live it and be a part of it, and we knew we were better than those Power 5 schools as well. But it was nice that everybody could see it. So it was good to see, and it was a lot of fun. It was nice to see people like, oh, are you? And I'm like, dude, you don't even know it, or you?
Well, I can tell you.
I tell you what.
Good.
And I try to share this with everybody. And Chad, as you know, man, it was good that we had a chance to kind of capture some of the national stage for them to really understand how good ORU's been for a long period of time, right? Mm-hmm. Going into the year, we were number 6 all-time winning percentage in college baseball history. Number 6. There's some pretty good names ahead of us too. Some pretty good names behind us too. To be number 6, I think people had an opportunity to see kind of how good this tradition has really been. I think the second big thing for us is we made a historical run that you mentioned too, was being able to share it. And as you said, Chad, man, it's been 1978 since the last time we were there. The 06 team was a really good team, had an opportunity to get there too, man. We were really close and disappointed we fell short, but to be able to share those moments with everybody that's been a part of building the program, man, was pretty humbling, pretty special, and a very unique experience. You know, we figured, and we really lost count, but there was over 200 former players made the trip to Omaha in June. And we had a workout where we invited all of our former guys and former players too. And we had over 100 guys at practice one afternoon. So a pretty cool deal to be able to share. But as you said, man, we're proud of the fact that we had a chance to kind of capture some of that national stage so that people could see how good this program's been over a long period of time.
It seems like every year you have to prove yourself or earn that year. And it's like, now it's been on the map for quite some time. Like, you know, it's funny. He always talks about the series or rivalry with ORU or not
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State. and how you guys
say rivalry at ORU because it's not for us, or we don't think so anyway.
No, it's not. I mean, again, you talk about those teams. It's a really good team, and whenever you get a chance to play really good teams, whether they're in your backyard or they're not, I think you carry that chip around. You try to go prove something, and regardless of who we're playing, man, we're proud of the fact that we're able to compete.
Yeah, and I think what he's trying to say too is to be a number 4 seed. It bugged me, and I know it bugged like our whole team, our 06 group message team. We got pissed off about it because we just feel like there's another thing. Nobody shows ORU love. We've been, at one point we had a 15-16 year stretch where we were in the regionals for that long, and there's no love. And they lumped this team with Fresno State here, being the lowest seed to get to the College World Series, and Fresno State's the only one to win it as a 4 seed. But I was trying to have no disrespect to Fresno State, but ORU was not a under 500 team that was a 4 seed, or they had the second most wins in the country. You guys did to Wake Forest. Yeah. And that's what bothered me, and I guess some of the past players, is like that respect. Like, you guys were easily a 2 seed, even in your regional. We felt, the players, the alumni, that you were still a 2 seed in that regional, and
right,
we were just as happy as you might have been to be in that regional, because that, even though it was one of the toughest regionals, we know the Oklahoma State, we know DBU. Washington was the only one that might not have been familiar with, but as an ORU alum, we felt comfortable with Oklahoma State and DBU going to play them, which I'm sure you guys probably have too. You played them, 2-3 times that season already. Yeah. And but I think that's the thing, is when's ORU going to get the respect it deserves? And like you said, the tradition is 6th in the history in winning percentage, and you have the best season in the history of the school, and you're a 4 seed. I guess that's just
we got the question a little bit too, and to kind of reaffirm what you're talking about, Chad, is when we got there, a lot of people, the Cinderella, and I'm like, hey, look, time out. This is not a Cinderella team. I'm just telling you right now. And here are the reasons. I think when you think Cinderella, and you talked about Fresno State's run and an incredible run that they had, but our team was 42-6 down the stretch. We were 42-6 over the last 48 games of the season. Then you go a step further and go, hey, you know what? In game 2 of the regional, we're down 8-0 in the second inning. Right? Things were not easy in the regional for us to be able to win that thing. Mm-hmm. You do it with an 8-0 deficit, you do it on the road, and we're able to win. Then we go to a super regional, and what do? We blow an 8-0 lead in game 1 of a super regional, and you rebound and you recollect yourselves, and you're able to make a run to win that thing too. Then you go to the College World Series in game 1, we score 4 in the 9th to win it. So there wasn't anything Cinderella about that club, man. It's a really, really good team from start to finish. The roughest patch we had was right there at the beginning of the year, but we go 42-6 down the stretch. We have a 21-game win streak late in the year. So, man, they can call it whatever they want, but it was not easy. That was a really good team that made a really good run.
Yeah. Is there anything to being at OSU that helps, like your regionals close to you, some familiarity? Did that help too a little bit, instead of having to go get on a plane and head 1,000 miles east or west?
I don't know, because we did both.
Yeah, there was Oregon.
We had to go to Oregon.
Both.
Yeah.
So I'll say this. I think going into it, being a familiar place, sure. I mean, that helps settle you down a little bit. Not only was it familiar, but we had success there at the last couple of years too. So I think that that builds a little bit of confidence. We had played Dallas Baptist 3 times early in the year, and we didn't play well. They kicked our butt, or they beat us 3 times. Actually, it was a really good series. We played well, but they beat us 3 times. But you still have that, little bit familiar feel when you play them. So I think that helps. But again, man, I don't know how much it helps. I think in a lot of ways, just being on the road, period, helps your team. And I've talked about this several different times throughout the run. And I think what happens late in the year when you go on the road is your team kind of galvanizes a little bit, because you're able to block out some of the some of the stuff that's going on around you. When you're in a hotel, you're kind of isolated from, friends and families and all the stuff that goes with playing a postseason tournament at home. And we've played them at home. We play our conference tournament at home a lot. This past year we did not. So we were on the road like 48 of the last 52 days of the season. Something crazy, but in a weird way, I think that helped us and isolated us a lot from what was going on around you. So I think it was a good thing for us. But man, it's never easy. You get to the postseason, everybody's good. You talk about the regional that we went through. Oklahoma State was a really good team. Dallas Baptist were a really good team. Washington was a really good team, big and strong and physical, power arms, power bats. And then you go to Eugene, and we talked about Eugene, and we've been all over the country and played everywhere, and that's as tough a place to play as I've ever been to. I mean, the crowd's right on top of you. School was still in session, so there's students everywhere. They sell alcohol at the stadium. I mean, you name it. It was going on, man, and they had that place rocking, and it was extremely difficult to go in there and win. So I think it was a combination of a lot of different things, but back to our original point, man, it was a really good team all year long. There was nothing Cinderella about it.
And like Chad mentioned the 4-seed stuff. As a coach, obviously you kind of preach to control the things that you can control. But as a coach, what do you kind of think in the back of your mind about the committee and some of the decisions and the way they lay? I mean, obviously, you see who's getting all the host sites, and we saw two regionals, West,
two went
Oregon and Stanford, though. I mean, there was only
the two West teams, yeah. But Oregon was all the way at Vanderbilt.
Right, but I'm saying you had two Pac-12 teams represent the West Coast, which is so different now. How do you feel about that stuff? Like you can't control your conference. You just go play, and it is what it is. Is that the kind of just?
That's exactly what it is. I think too many times people think it's coach talk, coach speak, but man, it's not. I mean, if you're around our program every day, man, I don't care who we're playing. I don't care where we're playing. We can play them in the parking lot. I don't really care. Our job is to make sure that we're prepared. So when we do have an opportunity to go play, we're ready to go play. And that's where your focus goes. I think if you focus on committees and at large and who's going where and what your matchup is, and man, it's all the wrong stuff. I think your team can see that too, or they can sense that. Even though you're not talking about those things, they can feel it. They can sense that your focus might be somewhere else or maybe on the wrong kind of stuff. So, I mean, as soon as we knew we had an opportunity to go play, it didn't really matter where we went or who we were playing. You got to go play well. If you don't play well, you're not going to win. So focus on going to play well. How are we going to find a way to be prepared to give ourselves an opportunity to win it? And that's where your focus goes. So, I mean, I'm not into debating who should have got in or where they should have been or who is hosting. Man, I don't care. We had a chance to keep playing, and that was the important thing. We were ready for that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think for teams like, Oral Roberts, Fresno States, those, whatever mid-majors you want to call them, you kind of know what you have to do to make the postseason. You got to win the tournament. So
got to win.
At that point, that's what I like about the mentality is it is what it is. You got to go play good baseball. You said it best right there. I love that. And I think sometimes too, maybe you see a coach kind of complaining about it. What does that say to your team? Like, do you not have faith in us to go get it done? Whoever 4-seed, 5-seed, and there's no 5 seeds, but I'm just saying it doesn't matter what seed we are. Like you said, it comes down to playing good baseball and executing, which you guys did. And it wasn't easy either. Like, what? OSU, Washington, DBU, Oregon, TCU twice.
Yeah, throw Florida in there too.
Yeah. That's right. Florida right in the middle of the TCU game. It's I don't even know what to say. Like Chad and I talk about this, and Chad's brought it up. The separator, right, is really really
mid-major to a Power 5 is. I've always said pitching staff. It's hard.
I would agree with that
because you can, and I could say this. You can say it for me. I think our team in 06. I think the team you put out there this year, 1 through 9, can play at any school in the country. And I think that was the same way for us in 06. Now, pitching staff, it's hard for an ORU, a Fresno State, Cal Poly. It's hard to get a guy that's 95 to 100, like 4 or 5 guys on the pitching staff like that. They tend to go to the Power 5 schools. And that's what I've always thought was the separator. Because even Denton was, 84, 85 when he got to ORU. And then he got up to, 94, 95 last year, even the upper 9. So I think that for me, I've always thought that was the separator. But how do you feel about that as well?
Yeah, and I'll even go a step farther. Again, frontline guys are frontline guys, right? I mean, you can match them up any way you want to, and we'd match up with anybody. It's a lot of times it comes down to depth, right? Depth of your pitching staff, depth of your bullpen, depth of your rotation, especially. And I think that's a lot of times the biggest separators, because very rarely do you go through a year without injuries, without ups and downs, without guys going through moments where it's not very good. And you can kind of plug and play and put some other guys in and not lose a whole lot. So our depth is an issue at times, and I think that's the biggest separator where, we'll have those frontline guys, but some of those teams you're mentioning may have, a pitching staff that goes 4 deep that are pretty good, and the bullpen's pretty deep, and sometimes it's tough to match up. But yeah, I would take it as far as to say, especially pitching depth.
Yeah. And I think we even saw it at Oregon. They had you as Oral Roberts, you have to utilize your entire pitching staff throughout the entire season for the depth you're talking about. You had an Oregon that might rely on their horses. And I think it even showed in the super regional
when it did.
They brought in some guys with only 7 innings on the season.
That last freshman, that game 3.
And you can see, especially on TV, because we get the close up of their face and everything, how nervous they were to be in that situation. And I do feel like that's where a mid-major like ORU or Fresno State might be better off than a Power 5 at sometimes, because you utilize your entire pitching staff and don't always rely on the 4 or 5 horses that can get you through a ball game. That's where I think it really showed your depth. It was in the super regional. And then in the World Series, maybe guys were just, there was a lot. They were used, that might be the tough thing, is you have to utilize all that with the depth. So I
think so. And I think, along that point, Chad, I think a couple of things potentially that helped us. Number one, the way our schedule's set up, and that's from being here, man, our weekends are extremely important. We got to win those conference games. But every Tuesday, man, we're playing a really, really good team. Right. And for your guys that don't pitch on the weekend to be able to gain experience against really good teams throughout the season, I think is monumental when you get in those moments in a conference tournament or a regional tournament or a super regional where you're having to go pretty deep in your bullpen, knowing those guys have experience against really good teams. I think that's one. I think secondly, and you guys mentioned it earlier too, when we go into our conference tournament, we also are understanding that if we don't win that tournament, we're going home. That's the way it is. Whether you like it or not, whether you think you're good or not, it doesn't really matter. And to be able to go through those moments before you get to a regional or a super regional, to have those games, you already have experience. You already got a tournament under your belt by the time you get to regional. Most of the teams you're playing in a regional don't have that kind of pressure going into that final weekend. We've already been through it. The nerves are out. We're ready to go. And Chad, you can speak on this too. Then once you get into that, man, it feels like bonus time. It's time to go play and let it fly and let it all hang out. And I think your pitchers feel that throughout the year, pitching those really important midweek games against really good teams. And we've already been through it in the conference tournament. So by the time you get to a regional, they've had a little bit of that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think there is something to that, being ready for that. Because you look at the SEC, you got guys fighting just to not sure if they're going to be in that, last 4 in or out until the SEC tournament's over.
Sure.
So,
well, you have guys make the tournament that didn't even make their own conference tournament.
Well,
so
it's like
they're going a week or two without even playing.
Kind of like the year before, Ole Miss was one of the last 4 in, I think.
Yeah.
And I think they only lost 1 game through the tournament. I mean, they just got hot. What's another great thing about college baseball. Mm-hmm. And I will say, talking about Fresno State, ORU, not just because of Chad and us talking about it on here, but I think the similarity to Fresno State being kind of an underdog, or not the Power Five making a run. A lot of people here are attracted to you guys. So a lot of our listeners out here were, pulling for you guys to have success and actually make a run and go win that thing. So, it's pretty cool.
And we all know the connection to ORU and Fresno State, right?
And we do.
Okay. Yeah. I was making sure that, when I was in Omaha, I was letting everybody know too, hey, there's only one number 4 that won this thing. And guess where he went to school, guys? I'm just saying, just throwing it out there.
Have you talked to him about those stories that Bates, like during the games?
No. So Bates, after he retired, he moved to, I think he's in Montana, just mountain man now, just, working. So I was keeping him updated every inning, like Eagles 0, Oregon 0, whatever, throughout the regionals and super regional. And he turned it on the Oregon game. I think he didn't do any of the regional game. It was the Oregon game. I was late to it because I had the 06 group chat and then like Bates all's group chat. And he said he turned it on. A guy hit a home run to take the lead, and he turned it off. And he said he's only watched 2 pitches the whole season. It was the Fresno State tournament where San Jose State guy hit a home run off Fresno State, so he turned it off. And then the Oregon game, a guy hit a home run off ORU. He's like, I turned it off. He said, I'm done with baseball this year. Just keep me updated. And but he was having a blast. He was rooting for you guys. I know he posted a lot on Twitter, and I still think he has a record. I got to go back in the books, but I know he was up for like plate appearances or something like that. But he had a record when I was there. I know it was a record, but yeah, Bates on. And I've gotten to become close with him over the last 4 years, and we've always talked about ORU and stuff. So it was just a crazy connection that I didn't even know he went to Oral Roberts until I might have even left Oral Roberts and was looking at the record books and stuff to see if I ever made it in there, which I didn't. But
I saw it here long enough. Man.
I know I was a 2-year guy, so
yeah,
that's okay. I'm still a part of the 06 team and a great tradition at Oral Roberts, and it was fun. But yeah, Bates all had a fun time, and at least with me updating him. But yeah, he's a golden eagle inside.
I was going to ask you, not many guys, I don't know the number. You don't hear about it often. You'd probably have to go look it up, and I bet it's happened more than we think. But to play in Omaha or reach the World Series as a player and a coach, how's that? I mean, you're one of those, you're in that list.
Yeah, very different experience. So I actually, this year was my 3rd trip. So I made one as a player. I made one as the director of operations when I was on staff at Oklahoma State, and then obviously this year. So 3 very, very different experiences, 3 very different roles as to what you're doing while you're there. But they're all fun. They're all special. They're all unique. They're all very different. But I think that, again, the one thing, and I'll keep reiterating this, the fun part this year was being able to share it with a lot of different people, to be able to share it with my family and kids, and all the different ways you're able to do it now than you were as a player or what I was as a young coach. So very different experience, very unique. Enjoyed them all, though. They're all pretty special.
Well, it's hard to get there. So it's, I think it's cool real hard to see how big it's become and how much it's grown. And it's one cool place. Got to go there in 2014, and I wished I could have gone to Rosenblatt. That's the only.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, I loved Rosenblatt. Rosenblatt was such a different feel than what TD, or it's not TD Ameritrade now, but the way it's set up now is so different. And I think before, I really enjoyed the atmosphere, and I kind of explained it to somebody like this. I don't know if this is a good comparison or not, but when it was at Rosenblatt, it felt like a college party, because you would leave the stadium and you'd look at you're like almost in a neighborhood. You would look at people tailgating. They were tailgating in somebody's front yard. They were selling memorabilia or food out of somebody's front yard. It was different, right? It was like a college atmosphere. Then you go to TD Ameritrade, or excuse me, I keep saying, but you go to Omaha now, and it's much more of a professional type feel. The stadium is very professionally based, but the one very cool thing that I think they've done a great job with is all the stuff that goes on outside of the ballpark is very cool now and very interactive for players. So where our team hotel was, to the ballpark was about a 10 or 15-minute walk. So your players could actually be part of what's going on inside the village, inside of the stadium. So I thought that was very unique and very different to what it was in my first 2 trips, and much more player friendly this time than it was before. Before, when we were playing at Rosenblatt, you would have to bus in to be able to go to an event or be able to go to a game or to be able to experience what's going on around the ballpark. Then you had a meeting time. You had to kind of bus out of there. Well, now with your players, man, they have the freedom to just walk downtown and walk into everything that's going on. Much more interactive. I think they're much more involved in the fan part of the experience than it was before. So, man, you can't talk about how cool the experience is with the entire city of Omaha rallying around that baseball tournament for 10 or 12 days. It's pretty special.
The other kind of topic I wanted to get into, being that you did coach him, as you know, we don't really talk about ourselves often on here, but this guy as a player, and even that 06 team, and maybe just a little bit about that group, just so that way people that listen could hear it from somebody that got to coach him firsthand.
Well, I'll tell you what. First, I'll address Chad and what a great player he was. He came to ORU as a really, really good player. Hopefully, we helped in his development at some point a little bit. But man, a tremendous player, a big guy that was really athletic, especially around the bag and especially in the box. Guy could do a lot of different things, power from both sides of the plate. And one of those guys that had a unique ability to hit for average and hit for power. You don't find that much, especially in today's game. You don't see it a whole lot anymore, but a guy that was able to do that. But so I'm proud to be a small part of his journey, and hopefully we're able to help him develop a little bit along the way. And then obviously left here and into a professional career too. So really, really good player. Number one. Now you talk about that team, and he was part of a team that was a really good team from top to bottom. He talked about the lineup, and the one thing about that lineup too is, man, we had a lot of guys that could beat you in a lot of different ways. We had power in the middle of the lineup. Then he talked about Jake. His roommate was a guy that hit in the middle of the lineup, not a prototypical middle of the lineup kind of guy, but quality at bats. I think the one thing that really stands out about that club, or the two things for me, is number one, they were extremely competitive. All right. Not only with who we were playing, but they were extremely competitive with one another all the time. I thought that was really fun as a coach to be able to watch guys compete, not only against who we're playing, but compete within the team and compete in a good way. I'm talking about in a good way here. Very competitive group. And the other thing, and Chad has heard me talk about this before, is it was a tough team, really tough group, physically and mentally, a tough bunch. And I think when you have that combination of really competitive guys that are really tough too, then you have a chance to have a pretty good team. So that team was a ton of fun. We still talk a lot about that team. They were back here a couple of years ago, and just a fun group of guys, man. Uber competitive, ultra competitive, and man, they were tough-minded too. So a lot of fun to be a small part of that team.
How big a pain in the ass was he at the same time?
Oh, huge, right?
Because I can tell you as a what, 38, you're 30? Yeah. I could only imagine what he was like as a 20-year-old kid.
No, hey, you know what I loved about Chad? And you say that, and Chad and I spoke a little bit before we got on air about being tough to coach. He wasn't tough to coach at all. And let me tell you why. Because he cared. I think you find guys that really care about their craft and what they're trying to do and why are we doing this, wanting to know the ins and outs. I think a lot of people misconstrue that as being tough to coach. That's not tough to coach. That's being knowledgeable about what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I appreciated that part of not only Chad, but there's a couple guys on that team that were the same way, man. Hey, why are we doing this? Why? And if you don't have a good answer, man, they're going to see right through you. So you better be ready to go, and you better know what you're doing and why you're doing it, because competitive guys that want to be great are going to ask you those tough questions. So I never had it that way. I never took it that way. I appreciated what he did because he cared about what he was doing. He wanted to know what we were doing and why we were doing that.
And I wanted to win.
Well, yeah. But that's, I mean, when we talk even privately and he goes back to those times, it's pretty much the same story. Like that group of guys just wanted, it's like field rats. Like he would talk about, I don't know. I think we talk about.
No,
football,
he knows.
So
he was in the cage. We'd make him come and throw us BP for like 2 hours.
I know, but there's rules in place now where you're not supposed to be on the field at certain times, and there were times where they were out on the field when they probably shouldn't have been on the field. But I just love hearing those stories that he talks about, and it felt like a tight knit group. And I guess the only thing I wish we had was I can't find any archival footage of the ball he hit at Clemson. I've talked about it 1,000 times.
I have it,
dude. I don't have it. How do I not have it?
I got the game, the Clemson game.
I mean,
I'll send it to you.
I don't. You've talked about pimping the ball at Penn State. Like that may be the only ball that
we probably don't have that one on video. We're not going to replay that one.
No, it's in here. It's in here. That was the last home run I ever pimped. Was that one?
But I'm saying the Clemson one is like nobody could get mad for pimping that ball. Nobody on planet Earth could ever got mad, and those that saw it know what I'm.
But I learned my lesson.
It's true.
It wasn't about me. It was about the team.
That's right. That's right. And
I already made the picture.
Sometimes it's tough to learn that lesson, right? But we got it done. We got it done.
No,
I tell you what, that team was full of a lot of big personalities too.
That's a great way to put it, by the way.
If you look back at that team, there were a ton of really big personalities. Maybe that's why they were so competitive. I don't know, because we had these big personalities that were just, and it was fun to watch. It was fun to be a part of, to watch them go back and forth and argue and compete and fight and then hug and make up and cry together and win together and lose together. I think those are the things that you remember. A lot of the moments that I'm sure that Chad remembers, I promise you, I won't remember those moments. I won't remember a lot of the swings or a lot of the plays, but I remember the personalities. I remember the tough moments. I remember the moments where you look back and go, man, I wish we would have done that better. I apologize to a lot of guys that come back now that played around that time. Man, I think about how much better we can teach now than we could then, and I just wish I would have had the ability or had the foreseeing to be able to teach back then what we're doing now, and I think that's easy to look back and say, but I thought, man, I could have done it so much better. I wish I had another shot at doing it. But it was fun to be part of, man.
Yeah, it was. He's not lying. I mean, blows, like players to blows before practice. And then they're turning double plays with each other like nothing ever happened. I'm not even kidding you. Yeah. It's just,
it's unique, right? We're
like brothers, like real brothers. Yeah. Like you fight, so you want to kill each other, and then you just, when you step on the field, it's over.
I think we talked a lot about this group too, and to be able to do things special like that 06 team was able to do, man, there has to be a certain amount of connection throughout your team, and it can't come from the coaches, right? That's something that we can't always teach. You can't always force it. You try to promote it as much as you can, but I think at some point there's just teams that work, that connect on a certain level that you can't teach. That 06 team was like that, and our group this year was like that too, much differently, right? But the same strength of that connection we had this year too. I think the one thing you look at our club from this year is there was so much balance on our team. And we talk about balance. We talk about a lot of different ways your team is balanced, offensively, on the mound, and defensively. The group we had this year was probably as balanced as we've ever had. We've had teams that have been better offensively, probably. We've probably had teams with better pitching staffs up and down. We've never had as good a defensive team as we've had this year, but there was such a good balance of what we did as a group. I think that kind of separates this team from a lot of other teams that we've had is that balance in all three phases. And we talk about how good this team was defensively. And every time I get a chance to come on and talk about last year's club, I want to make sure that the defensive part of the game, which a lot of times just gets overlooked, man. People are looking for strikeouts. They're looking for home runs. The defensive part is a little bit boring, right? Gets a little bit overlooked. But I'm telling you, if somebody were to go back and watch every game that we played to see how many runs that we saved on the defensive end, you would be absolutely shocked. And we were good at all three levels. Our center fielder went in the fifth or sixth round, whatever he did. The right fielder was as good a center fielder as there probably was in the country. Our left fielder was as solid as they come. Our shortstop is already in Double-A right now. He could probably play defense in the big leagues today. Our catcher is now with the Indians. So you're talking about all three levels. We were so good defensively, and the difference that made on our team was huge. And again, I want to make sure that people understand, again, it goes unnoticed, it goes without saying, but that was a special defensive group.
Speaking of, you were talking about some of the personalities and even with the kids this year, with this group of this team, with the state of college baseball and recruiting and portal and JUCO guys. Chad talked about that 06 team. There's a lot of JUCO guys on that club. Like how much of that when you're recruiting, are you still focusing on the fit? We used to talk about it a lot in talking with other D1 coaches. It feels like now with the portal, fit kind of maybe is a backseat for some players, but maybe not coaches. And I can you kind of just maybe touch on that a little bit?
Sure. I think it's pretty easy for me, is because we want good players that are good people. If they're a freshman, if they're a JUCO guy like Chad was, if they're a portal guy, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You can get good people. You can find good players, good people, a lot of different ways. So for us, it makes zero difference. We look at the team again that we put together last year. We signed 14 guys last summer. We signed 14 guys in the summer. Basically, half of those were junior college guys. Basically, half of those were guys from the portal. We had one freshman on our team last year, one. And we only had 32 players on our roster too. So I think our roster is put together a lot different than most. Everybody we bring in has to be a certain fit. And I think Chad hit it on the head, man. We are filled. Our roster is filled with a bunch of baseball rats, right? And if you're wanting to get better, if you're serious about development, you're going to fit ORU. If you're looking for a frat party or a football game, it's not going to be the place for you, man. I'll be the first guy to tell you that. But if you want to get better, if you want a place to develop, you want a place to get a world-class education, then this is the place for you. And I think when you recruit that way and you're upfront and you're honest and you tell them exactly what it is, man, it makes it pretty easy when they get here. So we know if guys choose to come here, once they walk in the door and once class starts and once practice starts, man, we have a pretty good idea of what they're getting or what we're getting, but they also have a pretty good idea of what they're getting out of their experience too. So, man, for us, we've had a lot of good players out of the portal. We've had a lot of good players out of junior college. We've had a lot of good freshmen come in here and play. I don't care where they're from, man. They got to be a good person. They got to be a good player, and that's how we've been able to win. I had a phone call this morning. It's funny you ask about that. I had a phone call this morning, somebody asking me about portal guys and are they different? And I'm like, hey, man, we've been doing this a long time. Been at ORU for 20 years doing this. And I said, I can say without question, we have never had a guy off the portal that's come here that I wouldn't take again. I'd take every one of them again. But I think the reason being is they know when they chose ORU exactly what they were going to get. They knew exactly what they were going to get from our coaching staff. They knew what the university stood for. They understood what the university meant. And I think when it is that way and they get here, man, they have a good experience. So, man, we take good players that are good people. I don't care where they're coming from.
Do you think that it being a private school is, and this may sound weird to some people, but you look at Stanford's and your guys, is it beneficial? Because you there's a standard just to even get in school, let alone play.
Yeah, I think it could be. And I think because the biggest reason it's a private school, it's a Christian school. So there's some things here, man, that you have to make sure that guys are willing to buy into. There's a certain standard, as you said, that not only on the field, man, we got to be able to play and compete and work, and you have to have a certain skill set to be able to help us at a high level. But also when you're talking about the stuff off the field, man, you got to be a good person. You got to be willing to be disciplined. You got to be willing to sacrifice some things that some guys aren't willing to sacrifice. So is it harder to get players in here? Yes, it is. But it's easier once we get them here. Once school starts, class starts, man, we have a group of guys that are baseball rats that want to play, that want to get better, that want to go win. And that's special. You don't get that everywhere.
Yeah.
As much as you think you get that at other places, you don't, man. And it's very unique.
It sounds like you get the right players, maybe. Not always maybe the best players, quote unquote. And then how much, with the rule changes, how much do you think this not being able to sign or is it junior year now?
Yeah, now they have to wait till they're juniors.
I mean, you've seen just guys going after 7th and 8th graders, and it's kind of crazy to me. And Coach Batesell's made some really funny comments regarding it out here, and just loves the word decommit is created because of that type of recruiting. I mean, what are your thoughts now on that being a new rule change? Do you think that's going to even help with even more parity across the country?
I like the rule for a lot of different reasons, and that can be a whole another conversation. But
yeah.
Do I think it's going to help? It'll help some. I don't think it's going to help a lot. I think ultimately it's like this. I think if the NCAA wants to clean it up completely, here's the only thing that's going to stop it is if you want to commit a kid, or if a kid wants to commit to your school, let them do it anytime they want, but make them sign. Right? Make them sign.
Yeah.
If you want it to stop, that'll stop it. Right? When guys have a certain limitation on how many guys they can actually sign and when they can sign them, then that's when it'll stop. Until that point, it's the timing is going to help a little bit. It'll help a little bit.
But do they embrace those kind of, like, that's easy. I didn't even think about that, but that's such an easy solution, or one solution. Does anybody hear that? Do they take that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it sounds really good in theory sometimes, but a little tougher to enact, right? So I don't want to make it sound like it's that simple, but it could be that simple, right? And I think, when you're talking about recruiting and committing kids that young, I mean, some of those guys we know, at a young age that guy's going to be really good. But we also know there's some guys that are committing that young that really don't need to be committing that young, right? So this can help some kids. It can also hurt some kids. But I think if you want to try to just even it up and make it what it is and avoid all those decommits that you're talking about, man, you make it simple. You either sign them or you don't. And sign them whenever you want to. If you feel that comfortable with it when they're in 8th or 9th grade, and mom and dad feel comfortable enough with it that early to allow them to do that, man, that's their business. That's the way guys want to run their program. Man, I got nothing against it. I mean, they can do whatever they want to, right? Guys can win in a lot of different ways. But I think if the NCAA were to step back and look at it, say, okay, how do we make this even across the board? How do we slow this down? That's the way you slow it down, pretty simply.
Yeah, you see a lot of guys commit, and like you said, they don't sign. And I'm not smiling because it's funny. It's sad when they find out they don't have a home when they get there, because I've seen it out here where we're at, and
that's even why a lot of some guys are in the portal.
No, well, I mean, you faced a guy at OSU who was a 3rd round pick this year.
Yeah, Jaron.
Didn't have a.
No, I don't even know if they faced him because he threw the second
I'm just
game.
saying, he's one of those kids that was told certain things and ends up not having a home at a high school like he thought. And, you see that a lot.
Yeah. So, you do. And I think, the portal has changed recruiting a lot. And I think maybe who it hurts the most are the incoming freshmen. I think because you have your team put together, you have everybody recruited, right? You have all your junior college guys kind of in place. And then all of a sudden, boom, over the 2 months right before school starts, right? The dynamic of your team changes a lot, right? So I think there are less opportunities, number one, for some of those kids that are coming out of high school going into Division I baseball. I also think, with what the portal has done, it changes your recruiting. And for those young players, if you don't have a vision or you don't have an opportunity for those guys to walk in and play right away, like you do when you sign them, then it becomes a little bit different dynamic too. So I think, you have to be very careful, right? It's a funny spot. The portal is a little bit different, but it is a funny spot. And I'll say from a coach's perspective, and I share this with a lot of high school coaches too, is for a lot of guys like us, it's a little bit safer to be able to recruit from the portal for a couple reasons. Number one, you get a guy with experience. Number two, you get a guy where you can watch every at bat he's had his entire college career. You can visually watch every at bat he's had. You know exactly what the numbers he's put up. You know exactly what those mean. So you have a lot better idea. It's a lot safer of what those guys are and what you're getting. So I think the high school kid is the one that's really taking this thing on the chin. And let's not forget too, with the draft being shorter, with it being later, it puts college coaches in a much tougher spot too.
What about I mean, is JUCO a JUCO player not far behind a high school senior with the portal the way it is?
In a certain respect, but they're still, I don't want to say above that guy. It's just different than a true freshman high school player for this reason, because your JUCO guys that are coming into your program, they already have 2 years of experience, or most of them have 2 years of experience, right? So you know a lot better of what you're getting. It's a lot closer. And you know, with options, kids have so many options these days with the portal available to them, with junior college available to them. So let's say we take a high school player that comes in, and let's say he doesn't have the experience that he wants right away. What are his options? He can go to junior college, or he can go on the portal. He's got two different options. Now, if you're talking about a junior college player that you get, right, he's got one option. He can go on the portal, or he can stay there and compete for one more year. It's the options are a lot less when you're talking about JUCO guys. So I still think that junior college guy still has a lot of value to a lot of people for those reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting because we don't get to see it. I don't get to see it like you. You have a front row seat to it all. And I asked Chad a hypothetical. Was it yesterday? You know, if I put a portal player, you don't know the kid's name, you don't know, you can't see anything.
Just their numbers.
It's just this is a D1 portal player and this is a JUCO transfer. If the coach had to pick between the two, you know, it's probably going to be the D1 portal player.
It's safer, right? It's just safer.
Yeah. And but I don't want to discourage kids from going to JUCOs either.
No way. No way.
You know, coach, shout out Pat Ware. You know, he's made a very good point on here a few times that, you know, people look at JUCO as a negative. Is also, you know, could be looked at as a form of scholarship just because the cost savings from going to a D1 university is much higher.
Absolutely. And Chad knows this, man. We've our program, the foundation of our program has really been built over a long period of time on good junior college players, period. You know, you can go back and look at all the rosters. You can go back and look at whatever you want, but we've had a really good foundation and have been very successful on the foundation of good junior college players. I believe it's a great option. Heck, I sent my son to junior college. He played in junior college as well. So I understand the value. I think there is huge value in that for a lot of different reasons, not only to gain experience, but the other thing you're going to find with junior college players is they're going to figure out exactly how much they really want to play. You're going to have to go through some things in junior college that we don't have to go through at our level. So guys are going to find out how bad they really want to play. And there's a certain amount of toughness that comes with a junior college player, and there's a certain amount of chippiness that comes with a junior college player. They always feel like they have something to prove. And I have loved that part of every junior college guy we've gotten. We usually get a tough kid that has some experience, that's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and wants to prove everybody wrong. I love it. I think that's a great motivating factor. So the foundation of our program for a long time, even before I got here, was based on really good junior college players.
I guess one of the other things that we like to ask college coaches about when we get to talk to them is one regarding, you know, the third paid assistant things coming around. I think a lot of schools, if can afford to do so, can do it now, right? Mm-hmm. Fresno State's
they're not, but if they can afford it, they can do it.
But I think more than even that is the scholarship stuff. And do you think that's always going to be a fight? The 11.7.
Yeah, I do. I think it is because baseball still in most places is a non-revenue sport. So I think we're gonna battle that issue, and I think people get a little bit narrow-minded when they look at it too, because they look at it just in baseball. But if you're going to raise scholarships in baseball, then you're going to do it in some other sports too. And we have to be cognizant of the fact of how much it would cost a university to not only add it in baseball, but do some other partial scholarship sports, non-head count sports. Man, they're going to have to do it for those guys as well. So I think we need to continue to fight for it. I hope it gets better, but I think it's going to be an ongoing battle, especially from a financial perspective. And the second part of that is with NIL, the way it works now too, a lot of places the scholarship becomes secondary as to what guys are making with some NIL stuff too. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to move anytime soon just because NIL has come in the picture.
Do you think what's your opinion of it? I'm not going to ask you. I just want I don't want to put words in your mouth. What are your thoughts on the whole NIL as it's being used today?
Well, I'll say this, and from my perspective and in my seat, it doesn't really matter what I think. It's kind of like the portal. It doesn't matter what you think, right? It doesn't matter how you feel about it. It is here. It's here to stay. And I think every program and every coach is trying to just leverage it to get the best player they can possibly get. So I don't really need to get into it because it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It's kind of like the seed.
Like it or not.
Yeah, it's kind of like your committees. Like you can't control. You can control what you can't control what LSU is doing. Yeah. Ole Miss, Fresno State, none of them.
None of them. And you don't worry about what everybody else is doing, right? You worry about how you can make your own program and your own team better. I think if you focus too much on all the other stuff, you're wasting time. So my opinion on that, man, I don't really have one because it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's here to stay.
Creating excuses even at that point.
No question. No question. Hey, look, we don't have the same kind of resources as a lot of other people, but what we do have is we have a great resource of people here on campus. Not only I talked about how good our coaching staff was, that's part of it. Our strength and conditioning staff, our sports medicine staff, our academic staff. We have as good of people that surround our players as anybody in the country. And I will fight that till my dying day, right? We have good people that surround our guys, and you don't win with facilities. You don't win with money. You win with people. You win with players. That's what you win with, right? So all the other stuff becomes a little bit of fluff. We don't have the same kind of resources, but we got the same kind of people, man. We got people that not only care about our athletes, but know how to get them better too. So for me, that's what it boils down to. Can we surround ourselves with good enough people that give us a chance, give us an opportunity to go win at a high level?
That's great. You okay?
No, it's just it's crazy to hear because it brings me back to the reason I went to Oral Roberts and and the chip on the shoulder, like the whole team had the chip and everything. It's crazy, man. I'm so thankful for that opportunity, and that coaching staff was amazing that I had there the 2 years, and Folmer was awesome.
We're just glad you chose us. We tell everybody, man, we're just glad you chose us. We'll do whatever we can to help you, not only when you're here, man, but when you leave too. We don't lose sight of that part too. We want to make sure that our guys have a chance to leave here and have a chance to be successful, whatever they do. So humbled to be part of it.
Yeah. Humbled that's a great word for it right now. I'm humbled.
You have some awesome success. What are the conversations you have, or nothing changes going into the fall with the new group coming in?
And how is the new group?
Yeah, I know
you told me you finalized the roster.
You lost some guys from last year's club, and
some key pieces too.
I guess I would assume the expectation never changes, right? Your standard and what you guys expect is always the same. You're not focused on the result necessarily, but the goals to win your conference, I'm sure, and get there. But what are you thinking about going forward this new group?
So we've actually talked about this in our staff meetings a couple of different times. Is what is the message going to be like? And the message is pretty simple. Great year last year, but it's over. those wins don't carry over, those moments don't carry over. We lose a big part of that team. So this year's team is completely different than last year's team. And it could be in a good way or a bad way. I don't know. We'll figure it out when they get here, but it's a new team, man. It's a new identity. There'll be new faces. Those faces will be expected to do different things than they did a year ago. So, man, it's just like starting over. We will literally start over. And we do that every year, not just this year. We do it every year. You start over every single year. The talks that you have at the beginning of the year are very similar from year to year because you are literally starting over. You have to coach the guy that's never been in your program just as much as you have to coach the guy that's been in your program for 4 years. You have to do everything in between. So teams are so different. Personalities are so different. Leadership is so different. So it'll be a pretty quick, easy message. Like last year's over, guys, this is your team. You can create your own identity. Let's figure out what it's going to look like. And you start from day one, and hopefully by next June, man, we get to sit down. We get to have some similar conversations about how good that team has become too. But they're so different, man. You just start over from year to year, and maybe that's the fun part a little bit too, right? Is trying to create something and build something year after year, and knowing that you get to create something different every single year because teams are so different. Chad can tell you he's on 2 different teams. And those teams were completely different. The dynamic is different. The connection is always different. So, man, you start over. So we'll do the same here in a couple weeks.
And leadership is also different too. Every year. Were you the leader?
No, guy? I always thought of myself as a lead by example guy. I got made fun of a lot, actually. Folmer might be like when we're in cages, I always got made fun of. Because they all called me the golden boy. I was Coach Walton's, like I was his guy. That
he was the guy, right?
I didn't like the shoes, so I got my own shoes. I didn't like the Easton glove, so I got my Rawlings glove. Like I was the golden boy. I was made fun of. So,
God, how big a gear guy?
I feel like I'm a big gear guy.
He's a big gear guy. That's right.
Well, that's why I ask him all the time. Like, how would you have rated? You wouldn't have any equipment left. It would be gone.
Oh, dude, Pep hated me. I was always in there trying to get new stuff or batting gloves and it's not like it is now. I would have a field day now with the elbow guards, all the
you'd have all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
You have. I tell you, and Chad can tell you this too. I'm probably the worst example because I am the biggest, probably anti-gear guy. Like I could care less. That stuff to me is kind of all the fluff that I don't try to get too involved with. But guys like Chad, man, it was very important. So we got to make sure we stay on the up and up of some of the gear stuff. But I let other people that are a lot more interested in that than me. But I'm not a gear guy, and Chad was. I'd forgotten that about you.
Oh, the biggest gear guy.
He still is, by the way. Jordans were a nice touch, though. I'll say that.
Oh yeah, with Tuffy and them wearing the J's. Oh, yeah. Where were yours?
Dude, I'm not that cool.
I know.
I'm not that cool.
I was waiting to see if you had them on too. But.
Hey, they try to talk me into it all year long. I even have a pair. Wes got me a pair, but I'm not cool enough to pull those off.
Those need to be in you need to get like a case. Like the year of the Jordans that you didn't wear.
You should put like the College World Series logo on it or your record. And
get that whole team to sign those things and put them in a case. That's crazy. Nice. You didn't wear them.
That would probably be a little bit better than them going on my feet for sure.
I am surprised though you put the calves away. You haven't really worn your pants up.
I'm getting old though too, man. That's a long time ago.
Stop it. I was gonna say, like, I can tell you love your job because you look younger than me, and I'm assuming you're maybe a little older, but Jesus Christ, you look good, and there's no way. I mean, you gotta love your job. It just shows.
I do, man. I'm lucky. You get to go to work every day with young people. And I think when we're able to do that on a regular basis, you stay a little bit younger too. There are a lot of days where I feel young and I try to be young, but then, you hit the wall and you go, I can't do that like I used to, man. Chad used to talk about all the times I'd throw batting practice for hours and hours on end, man. I would be able to knock that down. I don't know that I could do that anymore. I can still throw, but I don't know if I could throw like that. But it does. I think it keeps you young too.
I'm gonna keep you young, and I hope that your team and stuff can hear this story that I have. We're in the cage, and he's got his earphones on because half the time he probably doesn't want to listen to all the shit that we're doing.
That's fact.
So he has this thing on, and the Gwen Stefani song comes on his iPad. He still had the one with the earphones connect, the shuffle or whatever, and it's the Bananas song. And we're all doing whatever we're doing, and he's getting ready to pitch, and all of a sudden he just starts going B-A-N-A-N and starts singing.
There you go.
And
that's right.
He was getting after it in there, and but he kept it loose too, and that was the good part about you, Tuffy, like the younger coaches we had, and then Walton, even though he was older and stuff, he would get in there too at night and did everything he would throw to us. But I remember that, and then I remember one practice, it just turned into a home run derby. And Coach Walton loved it too. He loved just batting practice.
He liked home runs now. Yeah,
I felt bad for our pitchers because we do like a 2.5 hour PFP practice, and then they would have to go shag BP for like another 3 or 4 hours. Don't quote me on the times because we went over our time limit.
No, you did it. No,
but, it just felt like 3 or 4 hours.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
No, but I'm talking about the time where it turned into you and Boucher versus me and Tuffy in a home run derby.
Who won?
Do you remember that? I think you.
I don't, but Tuffy would be pretty hard to beat. For me to beat the home run derby.
I think it was carrying more to left, and Booch just put on a show because Folmey's lefty. So me and Folmey were trying to go out to right. He hit some tanks. Do you still?
That was back in my young days.
Was that the last you might have done the home run derby?
Dude, I haven't swung a bat in a long time, man. Guys always ask me, "Hey, you gonna take a couple swings?" I'm like, "No shot, no shot." When I got to the point where it was going to be a struggle for me to hit one out, I was like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Just let them think of what it could be instead of what it actually is, right?
Yeah. No, I got to see it though. It was fun. And you talk about our team. You had everybody around, all the hitters. So none of the hitters were shaggy. It was just the pitchers.
The PO.
All the
life
hitters,
of a PO.
All the hitters are around the big boy just talking. I mean, and we split the teams up. So like Folmey and Boucher had their guys. And and that was back when I could get rattled like really easy. And they had like a rattle box with pennies in it. And like, they'd be like talking, crap the whole time. But that was fun. That was the fun memories. And that's the thing. You remember right? You remember a lot of the stuff that weren't the games, is like the brotherhood stuff. But I remember that. And you and Booch definitely won, I think. But that was fun.
Well, it probably didn't have anything to do with me. Booch had some serious power.
Yes.
And if you found his spot, like if you could get the ball to that spot, man, he might hit 10 or 12 in a row. Yeah. No problem. He was fun, man. He was fun to watch. When he finally found some of that power that we all knew was in there, man, and he was able to kind of dive into that and repeat his swing, man, that was pretty fun to watch.
So Hefner was just out shagging balls, or was that a different year?
Hefner was 07. That's a totally different team. I don't even really talk about the 07 team. That's the thing Folmey's talking about. It's just,
that's right.
It was so different. Like the dynamic was different. We lost. I think it was just, we had so many Cali JUCO guys and like junior college players on that 06 team that we all were similar. We all had that same chip like he was talking about, and we were, we felt like we're the band of misfits, and then 07 we had more of the high school recruits and then some of the JUCO guys from Oklahoma, and if we said hella, we got in trouble because we ain't from California, it's y'all, and we got to say different stuff. So it was just a different dynamic. And I love 07. I love my whole 2 years there, and we were good in 07 too, and probably should have gone farther than the regional, but yeah, the 06 team was just like, this team is just special, and it will always be just in the top of my head is just 06, and the players, the coaches, it was one of the best times of my life, and I appreciate
that Clemson Super Regional, man, still haunts me a lot, man. We had opportunities in both games that we ended up losing. We had a chance late in the game to win both of those, man. That was fun though. What a great team. What a great Super Regional, though, too, man. And don't lose sight of how fun was that regional, too.
That was
that
the
Arkansas?
Yeah. That was the Arkansas regional. That was fun. People don't know Arkansas was actually the 2 seed, and Oklahoma State was the 1 seed at Arkansas. And we had the night game. And I remember waking up in the hotel, and they had a paper on everybody's doorstep, and the paper was, you open it up, the full paper, and it was Arkansas ORU. Nothing about Oklahoma State and Princeton. I think it was Princeton.
Yeah,
it was all about Arkansas ORU, and it had their first baseman, our first baseman, and they rated who had the better down the whole, every single player. And it was crazy. And you're just like, wow, this is like Arkansas is going to be, and there's like 11,000, 12,000 fans, you know.
It was fun.
That's crazy. That was 06.
That was 06.
It's just a different brand of baseball.
I mean, it's just, it's fun. It was fun. Ah, man, it was good times.
He's going back. The other thing too, I was thinking about, I don't know, again, you see it more than we do, but the game changing from the big leagues and kind of the style of baseball, way pitchers are used, the way they hit, obviously bunting, and you don't see a lot of manufacturing until maybe the playoffs start. But out here, we're seeing things emulated at that level, at a much younger level. And I don't know personally how beneficial I think it is for kids to be
acting like big leaguers.
Well, just some of the hitting mechanics, things that are changing. The launch
angle and
how much longer we got? We can be in this one for a long time.
Well, I mean, my machines here don't kick on for another 10, 12 minutes. We got some time.
Well, I'll say this, I think our game, now when I talk about the professional game here, I want to put this in context too. I want you to compare the professional game during the playoffs to college baseball and then down. So let's not talk about professional baseball during the regular season, right in this time right now when you're in the middle of the season, in the grind. I think it's very different than what you see in playoff baseball. I think playoff Major League Baseball is what you see at the collegiate level, the way it's played, a lot more similar. And I'll say this, when you compare those two, I think our game and the professional game right now are as close as they've ever been. I think a lot of that is because we have so much more access to data, analytics, technology, information in general now than we ever have before. And I think you're seeing very good teachers of the game at every level. I mean, you see it in high school, you see it in junior college, you see it in college, you see it in the professional ranks. There are really good teachers up and down baseball right now. I think this is a unique time where people have access to enough information that they teach themselves how to teach. And I think that's very good. So I think you're seeing players, and I shared this at a convention not long ago. We are getting players right now that are more skilled than they've ever been. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they're more skilled than they've ever been. So I think when you combine all those things, all the information, all the technology, all the data that's available to them, really good teaching at every level, that's why you're seeing our games get very close. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of kids emulating what they see in Major League Baseball now, maybe at too young of an age. But I think the reason why is because the skill level is getting so much closer.
Yeah, I asked that because I see guys, teaching 8-year-olds. I think was St. Louis's coach is at Marmol, saying they sent a guy down because he's wasn't getting the ball in the air enough. And I'm like, well, I'm not telling that to an 8-year-old.
Yeah,
I'm not telling that to a 10-year-old.
You know what's funny too is we talk about this a lot too, and we don't teach anything different. Let me back up. The way we teach is much different than what we teach. The things that we're teaching right now are the same things we taught 20 years ago. They're the same, right? The goal is the same. You're trying to hit balls hard. You're trying to hit balls online, right? They're the same. The only difference is we're able to teach that in a lot of different ways now. You have the data and you have the analytics and you have all the video and you have the biomechanics and you have so much more information that's readily available to you that the way you teach is very different. But the things that you're teaching, man, they're the same. They've always been the same. The fundamentals of our game are exactly the same as they were 20, 30 years ago. I think that's one of the things that I've appreciated in my journey is the guy that I played for in college was on the cutting edge of all this stuff. If he would have had the ability to track information like you can now, it would have been crazy. He was way out in front in everything that we did 30 years ago, right? Then you work for a guy in Rob Walton who stayed on the cutting edge of what we were doing and how we were doing it, right? So what we're doing has not changed, but the way we're able to teach it, the way we're able to analyze it, the way we're able to attach numbers to it has created a unique way to be able to teach. But don't make a mistake about it, man. The stuff that we're teaching, exactly the same as we did 20 years ago.
Do you think that some guys maybe rely on it too much? Like, how much of it is important for them to have the feel as well? Like, not relying on just the screen says.
The guys that do it the best, the organizations that do it the best, do it with a little bit of both. A little bit of new school, a little bit of old school, a little bit of feel, a little bit of analytics. The way they're able to combine it and really translate it to players to what they can understand and what they actually need. I think those are the teams that do it the best. So I think if you're not using data, if you're not using technology, if you're not using analytics, I think you're missing the boat. Also, on the other side, if you're not relying on old school feel, kinesthetic feeling, I think you're missing the boat there too. So I think you have to have both. I think the guys that do it the best incorporate some of both of those things.
When you manage a game, how much of it, I'm sure there's a balance that you have to play every game because they're always different. Different scenarios happen every game, every different, variables that take place. How much do you try to do, what my eyes tell me and then what maybe the statistics show in this situation?
This is not going to be a great answer, but you better know the numbers, right? And you better go with your gut. And you need to do both of them.
And both can be wrong.
And both can be wrong and both can be right. So I think you have to do both. You have to do both. You have to know the numbers. You have to understand what the numbers mean. And there are times where the numbers become extremely important. There's also times where you better go with your gut and you better go with your best guy, regardless of what the numbers say, regardless of what his batting average is or his ERA is or average against, whatever the numbers are telling you. You better have a moment and a time where you got to play your gut too. So you better know the numbers because the numbers are important. Not only are they important to the decisions you're making, they're also important to be able to put your players in a position where they have a chance to be successful. So there is a time and a place for that, man, but you can't go away from your gut and experience that goes along with that.
Love it. Because Chad, you can share your thoughts on it. I know you're not the number stuff.
No, so Folmy knows I was a guess hitter. You couldn't put me on. I guessed every pitch. That was just the way I was wired, and I was very fortunate. I was successful at it. But to have a pitcher's hot zones or a percentage of a curveball in a count, all right, I would have used that stuff. That would have benefited me because I guessed pitches. Like if I know he's going to be 70% fastballs, I know I'm guessing fastball first pitch. But what has he done to 3-4 hitters in Arkansas's lineup or somebody that's like me? Okay, now he's 40% fastball, so I might be sitting on a different pitch. I think those type of things would have helped me out in our era.
And I'll even expand on that a little bit, Chad. One of the ways we could have, that I look back on now and we could have made you better is just those things. So you're talking about the plan that you have and why you have that plan against certain guys. What we get better at now is having guys actually execute that plan. And what I mean is this, when you were here, a lot of times, man, it's feel good stuff in the cage, right? We're throwing BP and you're feeling good about your swing, but we never really taught well enough how to actually execute that plan, right? To where we might set up two machines. And I know Chad's going to go a 2-1 count against a right-hand pitcher. Man, he's 80% fastball. So what's he looking at? He's looking at a fastball. All right. So in a cage, do we simulate that well enough in a cage? When you were here, we didn't. I think we do a really good job of that now. So we might have two machines set up. One's a fastball, one's a breaking ball, and we're gonna throw a breaking ball, and you're looking fastball. Are you in good enough position to be able to not swing at that pitch? Right?
Yeah.
Are we able to? Now we just teach it so much better to how you can actually execute the plan that you have. We can make a better plan, which is what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're talking about is, okay, you've made a plan. Now, how do we actually execute that plan? Are we practicing how we execute that plan in cage too? And I think that's what data and analytics can help with. I think you're looking how it can hurt you, but we're going, hey, man, how can we make those same analytics make you a better guesser? Right? For lack of a better term.
Yeah. And that's where I have a hard time with it, because I know I would use it the right way. I think in California, we just see it taught the wrong way. I guess that's where, like, from where we're coming from. That's why I don't like analytics.
Your opinion is that you disagree with some of the things that are being taught.
I think if you use
I don't like
use
saying
it
people,
correctly.
I just don't like saying people teach the wrong way.
I don't just
want their way, but who am I to say it's wrong?
Well,
I think people like it.
A lot of it comes down to how you leverage that too. And I'll use Chad as an example. So let's say Chad walks into our cage and we start doing a drill. Pick whatever drill you want. And Chad gets about 3 swings into that drill and he goes, hey, man, why are we doing this? What is this for? What does this actually do for my swing? Well, now, if we've done our job, we can take some of the data and the analytics and explain to him, hey, this is why we're doing this. And also, here is the data as to why we're doing it too. So you don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. But I'm here to tell you this, what it does for your swing. I think that's one part of it. The second part of it, and where we've gotten a lot better, is we're not going to have Chad do a drill that doesn't really help him, right? And we can look at this analytically and with data. If it's not really helping him solve some of his problems, then he's not going to do this drill.
Right.
We're going to just move on to a drill that actually helps him do this. Mm. So there are so many ways to spin the data and the analytics. I think people look at it from a microscopic point of view and go, man, those numbers, I know what those numbers are, but do those numbers help you hit better? And the answer is maybe, right? The maybe is, if you're just looking at numbers, it's just freaking numbers.
Right.
If you're looking at just launch angle, that's just a number, right? That's not how we teach. But is launch angle important? Yeah, it is. Absolutely. It is important, because the more balls you hit in a certain launch angle, the higher your numbers are. Everybody wants good numbers, right? So that's why it's important. It's not important that you hit every ball in the air. You hit too many weak fly balls, you're going to be sitting right next to me, and I sit on the bench the whole game, right? You hit too many weak ground balls, guess what? You're going to be sitting right next to me, and I sit on the bench.
Well, and
but we can use all the data to really analyze what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yeah, that's what concerns me about seeing it at such a young age. An 8-year-old hitting 220 isn't going to advance as the years progress. He's going to, he's going to be next to his coach. I think you said something really interesting there too about if it's something we're not going to do that drill. Like, it creates some efficiency, like some time management.
Absolutely, 100%.
Like, when you're limited on time during a week for practice, you can just, I know our practice plan is accordingly. Like, it's got to help you run the day-to-day as well. Like, I've never even thought about that.
Yeah, it not only makes you very efficient inside your practice when you're talking about what drills we're going to eliminate, what drills we're going to use. It also helps you group players together as to, okay, if we have early work today and I'm going to bring in, let's say we're bringing in 4 hitters. Well, I'm going to bring in the guys that we need to address certain issues that are very, very similar, right? So it makes our practices a lot more efficient for a lot of different reasons. The second part it does is when guys go work on their own. Chad talked about going to the cage and working on his own, and that is awesome, right? Now we have something that can actually measure what they're doing without a coach standing there and let them have immediate feedback on whether it's making them better or it's not. It's very simple. And the last thing I'll say about it is this: everybody wants to know what their numbers are. Right? If you use them or not, it's a whole different issue, but everybody is very curious to know what their numbers are, right? So part of our job is to make sure they know what the numbers mean, what their numbers are, and which numbers are important to you. because I'll use Chad as an example. We're going to put, if we go to the cage and hit with Chad, I don't want Chad hitting a bunch of ground balls, right? Because Chad is not a guy that's going to beat out a bunch of ground balls. He's a guy that needs to drive some balls in the gap. He needs to hit a lot of balls hard. He needs to hit a lot of balls on line. That's going to be part of his game. So we can teach to very specific numbers with certain guys. That's where I think it's great. So I hope when people look at some of the data and the analytics that are out there, just don't take a microscopic view of how those are used. They are used to analyze hitters, yes, but we can use them as coaches to make us more efficient, to make guys more efficient when they work on their own, to make your practices more efficient. And it's just, you can teach using analytics. You can, but you have to know how to do it.
How much of that's recorded when you're out doing live BP? Is that where maybe they get some of the feel part of that on their own?
Yeah. So for us, I'll just speak on our behalf and how we kind of have it set up. Is our indoor cages are used for all those things you're talking about. So we have very separate cages, and then we have very separate ideas of what we're doing. So in the cage, so I'll just break it down as quickly as I can. So in cage one, when guys are in cage one in our indoor facility, they know when they walk in that cage, we're going to have it set up to where the strike zone is visible. And what we're working on in there is pitch selection and strike zone discipline. That's what we're doing in that cage. I don't want them thinking about anything else other than those things. In cage two, when we're working in cage two, that's all about fundamentals of the swing. We're going to have a drill going on in there. We're going to be doing something in there that is working on what they're trying to do fundamentally inside their swing. In cage three, we're working on swing decisions, swing or not swing. So not only is that strike zone discipline, it's different pitches now too. So those are very distinct areas where we're working on very specific things. And once they head out the door and they go out on the field, then it changes completely to exactly what you're talking about. What does it feel? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to situational hit? Am I moving a guy over? Am I trying to drive a ball in a gap? So there's very distinct areas with what we're trying to work on. And now we can measure what we're doing in all those areas. That's where it's very different. That's where it becomes very efficient as to what we're doing.
And
so those days of having long practices, and we just don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have them anymore. We can get more done in a 2.5 hour workout now than we could in a marathon practice years ago. We just can. You're more efficient.
Yeah. And I think it also, overall, and Chad talks about a lot as you get up, even pro ball, like consistency, it's going to help with that consistency. It's going to reassure you when you're doing things right. It's going to let you know when you're doing things wrong, as long as you can interpret that data correctly. It's not a bad thing. And there's progression since the beginning of time. Things have progressed. Like baseball, a lot of sports are bound to continue to progress.
Measurement is motivation. So anything that we can measure, guys are going to be motivated by it because they don't want to see bad numbers. They want to put up numbers, period. I don't care if you're talking about their batting average. I don't care if you're talking about their launch angle or their exit velocity or, even smaller numbers like when we're talking bat speed and hand speed and swing path and swing plane. Guys want to see good numbers. And when they're motivated by numbers, which every baseball guy is, the more that you can measure things, man, the more motivated they're going to be. And it makes them extremely focused on each and every swing if they know it's getting measured. If they know there's going to be a number attached to every move that they make, man, that's motivation to get going. We talk about the changes in baseball too. I had an opportunity to talk with Augie Garrido a long time ago when he was at the University of Texas, and he gave us some advice at that moment that I'll never forget. And it was very profound at the time, and it's very profound now. But he said, "Man, if you're not willing to adapt and change, you might as well get out of this game right now. You might as well go do something else, because the kids are coming in. They're not going to change over the short period of time that you're going to have them. So the person that's going to have to change is you. And if you're not willing to change and adapt what you're doing, man, you might as well go do something else right now." And that's always stuck with me. And especially now, as you see all the analytics, all the data, all the buzzwords that people are talking about, man, it's here. It's here to stay. How can you leverage that information to make your team better? And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I love that. You know, because again, early on, I remember being like, "Oh, this is for the birds. This is everybody's making their decisions based. They're living and dying by it."
Sure.
But I took a step back. It was probably about 2 years ago, and I realized, oh, the business that I run in the industry we're in is just again my business. We're not doing it the way we did it 30 years ago. We're doing a lot more automated things and things that make our streamline more efficient. It's just, it doesn't matter whether it's industry or athletics. Things, like I said, they progress and there's different ways to do them. And, you know, a lot of times they can end up being better ways to do it. So it took a while, but I finally kind of opened my mind up to some of those ideas.
Yeah, that might be a whole nother podcast we can get into at some point, right?
No,
I'm as old school as they get. I promise you, I'm as old school as they get. And I enjoy the older part of our game, the feel and some of the things visually that you need to be able to see as a coach. I think that's the way you make adjustments faster. But to have some of the new data and analytics and video and measurement tools that we have now, man, I think the more you can leverage those. And again, I'm a baseball geek, man. I'm a baseball nerd. So I'm into all that stuff. I want to be on the front line. I want to be able to provide opportunities for every guy that chooses to come into our program. I want to exhaust all of our efforts to make sure we can make them as good as they can possibly be. And if you're not using technology, if you're not using some of the new stuff that's out there, then again, I think you're missing the boat. We've shared this with Chad too. The one thing that we've really invested in over the last 5 or 6 years is technology. We are on top of all the stuff that's out there right now, man. We're in a little bit of everything, even with the resource issues that we have all the technology, and I think that helps your players continue to get better.
Yeah, no, absolutely does. And I mean, even to those that are 100% into that data and, you know, the analytics stuff, I think it's also, you know, fair for them to appreciate the old school is that you can still learn from that stuff today as well.
Absolutely.
And I think you were right on saying the balance of a little old school and a little new school, because you can still learn just as much with the old school way as the new school. Maybe take a little longer, a little more work and
sure.
you know, stuff like that. But fundamentally, I think both work. I love that. I love how you put that too. Coach, you're right. We should do this again. I think we just
do it again.
Yeah, we just scratched kind of the surface of some offensive stuff. You kind of get lost when you start going. And Chad's a freak when it comes to hitting. He loves talking hitting. So we need to
we'll do that on the next one then.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with us. Congratulations on the success you had this season, personally, and the team, your staff, your fan base, your administration, your alumni. I can tell you that they were proud. He would be texting during the podcast, not even paying attention. He'd be sitting here on his laptop watching your guys' games. So trust me, it got all the way out to the West Coast, what ORU was doing. And I just wish you continued success. And again, I just appreciate you coming on with us today.
Yeah. Appreciate y'all having me, guys. Chad, it's great to see you, man. Love you, buddy.
Love
Anything
you too,
for you, man. We're here.
Hey, do this for me. If the kids on the team ever get too complacent and think the indoor, just go have Tuffy take them up to the AC and hit them racket balls. The infield.
Hey, you know, we've tried to explain to them too where our indoor cage was. You know, and the visual is pretty tough because we got a meeting room there right now.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit tough to see, but yeah, we try to remind them like, hey, you know, be thankful. And again, you know, I keep going back to our run. It's players like Chad who can appreciate those moments and did it without some of the resources that we have even now, right? And to be able to share those things and be able to share those moments so that our players know that it's not about them. It's about everybody that came before you that was able to build some of that tradition and legacy that you're able to put that uniform on and compete at a high level. So, yeah, we remind them all the time. I promise you, brother.
Well, and that starts at the top with you. You know, you being in that program so long, you know, that's probably another big help of, you know, the history.
Yeah, he drove one of the vans to Owasso. We had to go practice indoors. A high school.
That's right. I forgot.
High school field had an indoor facility, and we didn't. We had to go drive to a high school.
Of course,
we did do that. I'd forgotten we did that, man. See, it's great. I get to remember some of these stories now too. Yeah. We did that several times too.
We did. Yes, we did. but it was fun. It's something I wouldn't take away, and it made us better because I think we were tougher for it. Having to do that. So
I agree.
But again, I appreciate it. I love you. I'm thankful for everything that ORU gave me. You gave me, and it was very fun watching you guys do what you do, and just knowing I was able to be a part of it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, Coach. Anytime.
Man, that was great to.
Yeah, thank you.
Be with Coach Folmer.
Coach Folmer. Yeah, man, that was cool. Good stuff. It's all, dude. Talking.
It was way overdue.
Well, yeah, at any D1 coach.
Well, just the connection I have, it should have happened. But I'm here and there.
No, I know. Tougher. Well, and I tell this to people a lot during the season. We don't like to bother. They're working. You know what I mean? I know most of them don't care.
No.
But I don't know. I just feel
it almost worked out best too after the year last year.
Yeah.
And, everything that happened, the exposure.
Well, and when it's done, everybody wants a piece of of him and but awesome time and just good conversation. I just appreciate him. These guys take 2 hours out of his day right there to just.
He would have kept going.
I would have been, if I didn't have to work, I would have kept going.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate Coach's time and. I know you're a proud alum, and it's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool to one to see their run and just get to chat with him and kind of hear about the season and how things went. But stuff around Major League Baseball, real quick, before we actually wrap up the podcast for this week. You have the MLB trade deadline. Big movers really were the Mets dumping Verlander back to Houston. Did that kind of?
Why'd you leave?
Well, yeah. Money, maybe? It was a money thing, right?
No, I don't think so.
He got a lot of dough from the Mets.
I don't know.
And the Astros are going to eat some of that contract that he had with the Mets. They also get in return the top. Drew Gilbert was one of the prospects that the Mets will get, who was, I think, their number one for the Astros prospect.
The pitcher?
No, the outfielder from Tennessee.
Oh, really?
He was a first-round pick in 2022.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Drew Gilbert from Tennessee.
Is that the one that pimped it?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And the other one, I believe, was another outfielder, Ryan Clifford, I think his name was, going to the Mets. Also, Scherzer from the Mets headed to Texas. And I think Mark Canha got dealt as well.
Yeah, where did he go?
I forget. But I think he's gone too. I don't know who else from the Mets is. Dude, there was a lot of last-minute movement at the trade deadline. So I don't have all the numbers and notes. The other one was the Angels, who made some moves, getting C.J. Cron from Colorado as well as Randall Grichuk, and from the White Sox, Lucas Giolito, and I believe a reliever. I forget. It was a lefty reliever.
Giolito got smashed today by your Braves.
It's gonna. Listen. It's the Braves, the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
Right. So
I guess I don't know. I haven't.
No, they are.
Okay. 60, I believe you.
67, 68 wins. My favorite part about it right now is that, one, the Braves are the best team in baseball as far as records concerned. And honestly, they probably are the best team in baseball.
And the Orioles?
The Orioles are the second best. Same amount of wins as Tampa, but fewer loss. I think they're 66-41 as of today. Leading the American League East. 0.0 no longer. Listen, that is pretty awesome, bro.
No, it is.
It's a good thing.
It's a good young club to watch.
And then, the Yankees are in last, like 11 back.
But they get Judge back, so.
They've been dealt with some injuries. Nestor's been out for a minute. I will say, just seeing what the Angels, Rangers, and now Astros have done, it's looking like all eyes on the AL West. I never thought in a million years I'd say that.
Yeah.
Because it's typically pretty bad. Maybe it'll stay. I don't know. The Astros have won some World Series recently, but the Rangers have been in contention all year. The Angels are not far behind. Like, there's a handful. There's plenty of teams in the wild card.
They got a record setter every day. Every new record.
It really bothers you.
It's just a new record every day.
Do you say that to get?
It's just stupid.
But you got to be impressed.
It's like the Captain Obvious commercial.
But you have to be impressed.
I'm very impressed. He's a great player. I've never said he wasn't.
Like, to go player. 9. Who's going CGs? I think a 2-hit shutout, and then to follow it up.
That's his first CG
with 2 bombs in the doubleheader. You pitch game 1, you take game 2. Like, I don't know, man. It's insane.
I mean, I was doing that in Little League.
I think we all kind of played both ways. I wonder what people think when they hear you say
I'm
that.
an asshole.
I love it, though. It's great. Framber Valdez, also from the Astros, throwing a no-no. Was it the Guardians? Sorry, not the Indians.
No idea.
The Guardians. 2-0. But I think it's the third no-no of the season, so pretty awesome when you see those.
Great hitting.
Well,
they're really using their analytics.
why can't a guy just pitch really well?
Because I'm a hitter.
Jesus Christ. The one trade that did take place that I felt like, oh, damn, this kind of sucks, is the Guardians. Cleveland Guardians acquired infielder Gene Segura and infield prospect Khalil Watson from the Miami Marlins on Tuesday. Today's actually Wednesday, so that was yesterday. In exchange for first baseman Josh Bell. And according to sources, Segura's stay in Cleveland did not last long. Per The Athletic, the Guardians are releasing Segura. He's owed his salary for this year, 23, $8.5 million for 24, and $2 million buyout for 25. I wonder. So they just made that move basically to get the prospect.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, we're not gonna. I mean, who's on the hook for that tag? The Guardians.
I just have money to pay a guy not playing.
To not play? Well, again, if you release him.
They also didn't know. Miami probably didn't know what they were going to do with him.
Yeah, but he can still get picked up, right? I mean, somebody's going to pick up the tab on his contract. It's just you don't see that a lot. At least I don't think you do. Again, it's one of the things with Major League Baseball that's just different.
Yeah.
You don't see that a lot at the trade deadline. At least I don't remember seeing it a lot.
No.
As a guy, being just taking a prospect just to release another guy.
A 10-year vet.
Last thing, the Savannah Bananas came to town. Mm-hmm. And I actually got to go. I don't even think I told you this.
Nope, you didn't.
Yeah, a friend of mine had a ticket last minute, and I ended up going.
And that's the end of the show, so.
Bro, honestly.
I bet it was fun.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. I had a good time. You know what they tell you? So, one, it's nonstop. When the gate opened and they let you in to go find a seat, because it wasn't assigned seating, it was open seating.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They were entertaining from that moment on till the game ended.
Really?
Like players were doing stuff. There was MCs. One of the things they tell you right before the game starts, and one is completely different, I'll say, style of baseball.
Well, they do play. Like, there's a winner, and they actually do play baseball.
Yes.
It's just not traditional.
No, not even close. But they tell you that. They say, hey, listen, this isn't baseball. You're getting and listen, those guys got to be exhausted. I can't imagine how tired they are.
And don't they do it like every night or every other night?
I think it was a Thursday in Fresno, and on Saturday they were in Sacramento. So but still, dude, it was hot, and it was literally non-stop. I would advise anybody, if you can get a chance to go. It was fun.
Did you buy anything?
I wanted to. I wasn't going to wait. By the time we were done, like 40 minutes to get through the line. But I will say it was a good show. I saw a lot of people in our area that were there and went and seemed like they had a great time. But yeah, if they come back around, I would encourage you to try to get some tickets and go. It was pretty cool to see. Pretty good athletes out there. Anyways.
That's cool.
It's like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball.
But it's fun to watch. Like,
dude, it was.
I follow them on social media. So, I mean, they did since they were on the West Coast, they did the Maverick beach scene.
Oh, okay. Oh, did they? I didn't see that.
Yeah, they did it playing baseball. It was pretty funny.
So one thing, a lot of shirts off, a lot of, a little bit, there was a lot more for maybe the ladies to indulge themselves with, I guess.
Yeah. But
still, it was cool, man. They a lot of fun. I know it was the insane crowd. They said 12,000 people.
Yeah, I bet.
So it was pretty nuts. But hey, listen, we appreciate everybody sticking with us. It's a long one today. Again,
it's a great one.
Yeah,
though.
Absolutely. And thank you to Coach Folmer and his time. Like we said to him, good luck to them and their staff. And that's another episode of the Hit or Die podcast.
Hit or Die.